What's going on, YouTube? My name is GinJTCG, or Chris, and today I'm back with another Battle VIPs podcast episode, joined by my co-host, Avery. What's good, Avery? How are you, dog?
I'm doing just fine. I hope y'all are ready for this absolutely, just God tier list. Y'all are about to hear this. And, some of you might be a little upset at our rankings, but
a lot of you.
Actually, you know what? That's fair. A lot of you are going to be upset, but at the end of the day, it's all love here. Keep the comments nice, all right? Take your mean stuff on Twitter. That's where I want to see it, all right?
Bro, for real? The Twitter beef has actually been insane. Like Pokey Twitter has been, bad, the past, couple
I
weeks.
love every second of it, because I am not on nobody's side. I can play the I am the gaslighter.
Small plug, follow the channel's Twitter, but not gonna lie, I totally just lurk. I really don't post much on Twitter. Pokey Twitter's too scary, so I lurk in the back, but y'all should still give it a follow. I got 30 followers, bro.
Make it 40. If it's 40 by the it better though. How about this? 60 by the next recording. 60 by the next recording, and I will make a tweet. I'm not gonna say what it is.
60 by the next recording, and I'll tweet every 3 days. Firm goal.
I'm here for it. I'm ready.
Yeah, so anyways, if you clicked on this video, chances are you probably clicked on it because you want to see a Perth regional or Toronto regional tier list. So that's pretty much what the bulk of this episode is going to be. It's just going to be going through what we kind of amassed. It's early for Toronto. So Perth is the regional this weekend. By the time this video is up on a Wednesday, Perth will be on the Saturday. Toronto's not for another week and a half. So this tier list will definitely change by Toronto, but I think this is a good point where players should start locking in their decks and pick a deck now and just practice it for the next week if you haven't already made your selection. So I think for that reason, this tier list will be really, really beneficial for if you're going to Toronto's regional. But it is a bi-weekly podcast, so the Toronto results will really influence the next podcast tier list. And yeah, if there's anything more you want to throw in, if not, I'm down to just jump right into this.
Let's get on it.
I bet. So, for the first deck on the tier list, we got Ancient Box. Oh, real quick, actually, just so I don't make more people upset when I made my tiers, we got S tier, A tier, B, C, and D. S is just BDIF, so just so everyone is on the same page with how we're ranking decks, BDIF is all amazing matchups, super consistent. You maybe have one counter in the format. So if and when, because we don't have a BDIF, I don't think there's a clear BDIF right now. Avery, unless you think differently, it's not a tier we're gonna use frequently because you need a Silver Tempest Lugia type of dominance for me to consider a deck clear BDIF.
Yeah, I think that we're in a good spot for the meta right now. Never thought I'd say that.
No, I agree. A tier is an amazing pick. So whether it's a super popular deck or not, the deck has to be insanely consistent and have maybe 2 to 4 bad matchups, and ideally none of those matchups are super common, is kind of what I'm going for with the A tier. So there's not going to be many decks in the A tier. Just because a deck is insanely consistent and insanely popular does not mean I'm putting it in A tier. I need to see the matchup spread. I need to see the tournament results for the past couple weeks. I need a lot of statistical data as well past consistency. A lot of the decks that I think will upset people will be in B and C. Just because a deck is in the B or C tier, B stands for bulk of the meta as far as I'm concerned, and C is come up decks or rogue decks. So just because a deck is insanely consistent and super popular, it will probably fall in B if nothing else, because maybe it's got 4 to 6, 7 bad matchups or mid matchups, but it's really popular, so it's consistent. The majority of decks will be in the B tier category. That's not meant to say a deck is mid, it's meant to say this is the bulk of what you'll see, and I don't necessarily expect it to win the Perth regionals. Same thing with C decks. C decks are going to be slightly more uncommon, or maybe haven't been played or utilized in recent tournaments, but I think they're kind of on that come up, or they're rogue in general and are kind of making that initial appearance. If you're all good on those two, Avery.
Yeah.
Word. And then D, don't play. Just don't play D tier decks. I'm not saying they're trash most of the time.
I am.
Yeah, fair. But just in general, this tier list is made for the Perth and Toronto regionals. That is the highest level that, a bunch of people are going to be playing at frequently. It's the highest level of, public tournaments. with the biggest tournaments, generally you want to play decks that will do well to those. And if I'm putting a deck in D tier, there's got to be some major flaw, whether it's consistency, matchup spread, just something that's keeping it in like a don't play this to a regional. It doesn't mean don't play it ever. Order the deck, play it to a local. It's probably tons of fun. It's probably just not consistent enough, or it has too many bad matchups at the moment to bring to a good, like a big regional like the two coming up. So, sweet. I mean, if we're all good, if you're cool with the tiers and how we're ranking them, I am down now, officially, to just jump right in and see where our decks are falling.
Ancient
so
box.
To start us off, Ancient Box. So, after looking at a lot of results, tournament deck lists, I wanted to put this deck higher. I wanted it in A tier, because if I was going to Perth, honestly, is one of the decks I'm considering. I had it in B tier.
What changed between now and last week?
I think there's other single prize decks that are in a slightly better spot than Ancient Box. Sorry, I'm just moving my thing around. So, okay. No, I was just reorienting my tier list so it shows on the screen. Anyways, I think Ancient Box is an amazing deck. I think it's actually in a phenomenal position. I think the addition of the single prize Koraidon is kind of what the deck needed to swing better into stage 2s. That being said, with the popularity of like just the stage 2 deck of dominance right now, just because Koraidon exists doesn't mean your Charizard, Dragapult, and your Hydreigon matchups are better. It just means they're more manageable, if you will. So I think because stage 2 decks, and I'll get into it as we get into some of the stage 2 decks, I think because they're in such a well-positioned spot, I think that's going to bump the success of Ancient Box down a bit. Again, I think it could hang better. I think they're not like near auto losses anymore. At best, they're still 50-50s though. And I think that kind of keeps it out of A tier.
You know what? Honestly, that's very fair.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. But I will say I still think Ancient Box is still one of the best decks that you can pick up and play right now if you are a decently skilled player.
No, I agree. And again, when I say B tier, I had it at the third deck in B tier. Like, this is going to be one of my top B tier decks. Like, this is bordering on A tier. And actually, I did have it in A tier, but I had to cross it out because of what I had in A tier. I was like looking at all the A tier decks, and I'm like, okay, if these got top 8, like if one of each of these, there's not 8 A tier decks, but if like one or two of these each made top 8, Ancient Box would probably lose against most of these. And that to me kind of bumped it from A to B, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
But when we get through this tier list, if we're looking at it in hindsight and we're like, oh, you know what, maybe we should bump it up, we'll just drag it to A tier. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, fair enough.
For the next deck, we had Arch Aladdin EX with Dialga V-Star.
I mean, like, listen, I like the deck, I like the idea, I like the concept. We're going to be losing Dialga very, very soon.
True.
So I feel like that's just going to completely, like, take this thing down, and they're going to have to find another engine, another way to, like, get this deck off the ground.
So, the way I play Arch Aladdin actually doesn't use Dialga, and I think Arch Aladdin will still be popular without Dialga. I think just more people are using it with the Energy Switch, Energy Switch Pro, or whatever it is. I'm thinking Energy
Switch, yeah.
Scramble Switch, thank you. With the Scramble Switch A-Spec, you're using Arch Aladdins to set up and then switching into a Star Chronos, and then swinging that way. I think that's a super popular way to play right now. Those lists generally don't play Relicanth to use Duraludin's attack, where you do 10 damage counters, 10 damage for every damage counter on you, plus 80. So, I think, like, this deck will still hang and be viable post Dialga, but I think right now this is, like, a legitimate rogue pick. I think a lot of people could see some decent success with this deck. I think it's going to be kind of few and far between, though. I don't think this is going to be a popular deck. I think it still has a lot of rough matchups, but I think overall, this deck has a lot of teeth. It's consistent enough to definitely hang with the big decks. I just think it's still not refined enough to get there. There's still too many ways to play it. There's too many variabilities in which cards do you cut, keep. Some of the matchups are still a little too shaky, and I think with time, this deck will get more popular. Right now, though, I got it in C.
Yep, same thing here. I feel like this deck definitely needs somebody. It needs a hero. It needs a hero to come along with the perfect 60.
Yeah.
And right now, we just don't have that. Anytime you see an Arch Aladdin Dialga player, or even with or without it, they're gonna have like they're gonna have, not completely different, but they're gonna have a different list. They're gonna have a different way to play it, different strategies, different everything.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be someone eventually who just comes out of nowhere and just absolutely probably takes top 8. I'm calling it. Duraludin is going to get top 8 in Toronto.
I think
it
can. Honestly, like, I don't even hate that pick. It's one of the best rogue decks I think we've seen in a while. Honestly, this deck alone kind of pulled me out of the like Stellar Crown slump. Like, I feel like during Stellar Crown, the format got kind of bland and like just didn't feel as new or fun, and like I had trouble coming up with some fun videos. But I remember the first one I really got to sit down and play, like past just recording videos, was Arch Aladdin, and it just kind of brought that spark back. And I think a lot of people have experienced that with Arch Aladdin as well. Excuse me, not Duraludin, Arch Aladdin. And just the versatility of the deck, the different ways to play it, like you said, someone's going to crack the 60, and then the regional after, someone's going to bring a completely different 60 with Arch Aladdin. And I think that's what I love about the deck so much.
I'm ready for it. Yeah. I want to see it happen.
Yeah.
Somebody, one of the viewers here, make it happen.
Yo, so true. And actually, like, let me know so I can show the list on the channel. Because if you're watching this and, like, this somehow influenced or helped, like, solidify or change your pick, I would love to hear about it and just, like, how your tournament went. So if you're playing in the regional in general, please let me know how you do. For the next deck, we got Snorlax Stall, my most recent update at the time of this video.
I got Stall in A. I feel like Stall is a deck that isn't being respected. It's one of those things that nobody is going to respect ever just because people don't like the playstyle. People aren't going to tech for it. People aren't going to think that they're going to run into it. People are just going to end up having a bad time when they face it. The amount of Stall slander I see on Twitter is enough to just comfort that decision. I think Stall is just a good way to like.
So
I think it's good.
I had this deck in B tier. There's too much Petra going around. There's way too many Petra and EXs in decks. So I put it in A while you were explaining it, because I actually really like that explanation. I think as a whole, people aren't teching for Stall, but I think there's actually a almost like a resurgence of just rogue decks doing well and actually gaining a lot of popularity. And a lot of them, like Ancient Box, like Cloth, like Roaring Moon, have Petron. And I think just the popularity of Petron is going to ruin Stall's overall performance. I think some people will just hit the expected matchups and, definitely get a day 2. This deck is day 2ing. I just don't see it top 8ing right now. I think there's too many Petron EXs just here, like, available that can kind of get through Stall.
I get that. I get it.
So it's up to you. If you want to keep it an A, if you're adamant, I'm down. It had a lot of auto losses. When I was going through, like, the history and, like, kind of, not the history, the matchup spread, there were a lot of decks that it kind of auto lost to. Like, its win percentages were actually hilarious. It was like a 70% win percentage or more against like 6 decks, and then it was like a 20% win percentage against like another 4 decks. And I was like, dude, this is hilarious. Like, this is actually the funniest thing I've seen. Because when you think about things like Quad Thorns, Ancient Box, Roaring Moon, even Hydreigon can play Petron. Cloth is getting really popular. Cloth plays Petron. Like, Stall seems kind of worse and worse at that point.
I'll work with you. I'll move it down to B.
Okay.
But like upper B.
Yeah, no. I agree. It's still Stall, and I think, again, it's got too many auto wins almost. Like, near auto wins to be any worse than top 4. I have it as the number 4 B deck in my overall list. And that sounds low, but when I hit 1 and 2, I think it's going to make sense. But I'm definitely down to move Stall up to, like, the 2 position. If it's not the 4, it's the 2. But we could look at that at the end if we feel it's justified. So, for the next deck, I got Palkia Ceruledge. Or I guess Ceruledge would be the main attacker, and then Palkia is the backup attacker with Greninja. Ceruledge.
I put it in B.
That's fair. I had it in C, but, I mean, I'm kind of down. I think between this and Goldengo, I don't really know which is stronger. I think Goldengo has, like, it uses the Togekiss now where you could flip a coin and take an extra prize card, which is pretty sick. But having Palkia and Greninja and Ceruledge just kind of allows for a single prizer to kind of mess with stage 2 evolving decks. Like, I guess I could like this in B the more I think about it. I think it's got more options than Goldengo. I think Goldengo, relying on a corn flip, sure, like 50-50, you'll get an extra prize card, which is pretty sick. But in general, I feel like, in a mirror match, you could just have Greninja take out your Togetic's or Togepi's.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fair. I like it in B. Probably low B, though. I don't think I'll have it higher than low B.
Yeah, I have it in low B as well.
Okay, that makes sense. I think it's too straightforward as well. I'm comparing this and saying it's more versatile strictly compared to Goldengo. I think overall it's still too much of a straightforward deck. It's too easy for, like, a Mimikyu or two, or even an Ogerpon to just, like, ruin in the mix.
There's a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Still a fun concept.
No, I love the it's an energy dump deck. It's fast, it's strong, it's chaotic, it's fun to play, it's easy to play. B is fair. I think B is fair. It's consistent. It's super, super consistent, and it's got a lot of mid matchups. It doesn't have a lot of phenomenal matchups. It has a couple bad matchups, but overall, it's a slugfest with this deck, and I think that's always fun to run.
Yeah, like if I went up against this at any point, I'd love to see their turns just play out. Like I would be.
Yeah. So I do this to discard 8 cards, and then I do this to discard 14 energy, and then I do this to discard the last 40 cards of my deck, and they're all energy. And I'm like, I love it.
And then I crashing headbutt and help you out.
Yeah, right. No, I love the vibe with Sarala GX. Jumping into the next one, I got Charizard Dusknoir.
I got it an A, man. It's just still too good. I hate it.
Better than ever right now. Like, it is in one of the best spots I think I've seen for Charizard in a while.
I hate it. Stop.
Yeah, the deck is insane, dude. Just having access to Dusknoir, 330 HP. Charizard, I think, is one of the better positioned decks. We know it's consistent. It's been consistent since the day it dropped. I think your worst matchup that, you should hit. You know what I mean? Like, the worst common matchup is, a 43% win percentage. And I know win percentages aren't everything, but they help build confidence. And if you could look at a lot of data like that and see that your win percentage isn't awful, that should give you an idea that if you're losing frequently to that matchup, there's something you're not seeing because other people are winning more. And then that lets you reanalyze your deck, look at your list, compare it to others, and just reassess how to maybe navigate that matchup better. Maybe use Dusknoir on a different Pokemon than you had been using it on. Or use Charizard in the late, or use Radiant Charizard in, the mid-game and put 3 energy on it with Charizard's ability. I think Charizard it just abuses Dusknoir the best out of any deck. So, yeah, A.
They printed Dusknoir for Zard, and they just said, there's a lot of decks that can use this. We're sorry, guys.
Yeah. So that's fair. Definitely got it in A. I got it in upper A as well. Into number 2, and I think this is going to be my road pick of the tournament. I got Dragapult EX in A tier as well.
You and me both. I think Dragapult is it's same thing as Zard. It's in the best spot it's been. People are like, oh yeah, why don't you just run right to Dragapult? Have you seen how Dragapult performs by itself?
Yeah,
I agree. Insane. You don't need to do any of these energy switch shenanigans to get Dragapult going. Sparkling Crystal, Fire Energy, boom, 200. Any smart player that knows how to place damage counters will ruin your day.
That's exactly what I wanted to tie into. Is I think the natural auto loss for Charizard, and it's not an auto loss, it's just a bad matchup, is Raging Bolt. Good Dragapult players can kind of just farm Raging Bolts. It actually has I think 55 or so, maybe higher win percentage into Raging Bolt, and I think that's because if you learn how to just target down Ogerpons, target down Mews, just Pokemon like that, you aren't evolved first turn, so Raging Bolt isn't really taking many prize cards. It's not taking a 2 prize KO first, especially if you don't need to play Rotom down. They're really just taking 1 prize card, so it gives you the option to not take the first 2 prize KO, but take the first attack and then eventually push a 4 prize card turn at some point and turn the tide back in your favor. And I think that's what's so insane about Dragapult is when you get good at the damage counter placement, this is the perfect time to really show it off. I think when Charizard's popular because of its bulk, Dragapult will also do well because of its bulk as well, but also just the damage counter spread helps farm lower HP matchups like Gardevoir and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could not have worded that better myself. It is insane. Dragapult is great.
Yeah,
Play
it's
Dragapult,
cooking.
please.
It's cooking. For the next deck, so we went from A tier, now I'm taking it to D tier with Flygon EX.
I don't even know what you do. That's how bad you are.
So I
like,
made a video on it. It was a ton of fun. It's a hit and run deck, and I think it's the best hit and run deck we've seen. Honestly, it's the best hit and run deck I've actually seen ever in my competitive history. So in the past like couple years, top attack, 1 energy, stage 2, 130 damage, and then you switch. It's a hit and run deck. You switch with your bench Pokemon, so you could play Mimikyu, Ogerpon. I guess you could play Melodic, but evolving is a little scary when you're already a stage 2. Basically, just Mimikyu, Ogerpon, Klefki, and you just hide behind them. But my thought process why this is in D tier, if you can hide behind those Pokemon, why don't you just play a deck with those Pokemon?
Or just play a different deck.
Or that. Or that. Yeah, and 130 isn't really enough to swing for KO on
Yeah, like 130. What are you hitting? That, like, aside from like a support Pokemon,
you can two-shot basic EX decks, which is the better matchups for this. Like, you do better into Miraidon, Raging Bolt, stuff like that. But when you get into anything V-Star HP and up, you're kind of cooked at that point.
I get that.
Yeah.
But Obsidian does the same thing 3 times.
I agree. I mean, D tier. You know, I think if you like the wall type style of Flygon, we'll get to it, but you should just play a wall deck. Like, they exist, they're good, and they're pretty easy to run right now. So if you're liking Flygon, you'll probably like my other rankings of the wall decks because they're just better Flygons in my opinion.
Yeah, like I can't justify Flygon user in this chat. I can't.
Yeah.
Y'all are insane, but like.
But bring it to locals. Fun. It's a fun deck.
Yeah.
It's chaotic. It's spicy. It'll bring some good laughs. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just to a regional, I don't think I would consider playing this. I don't think it's got my vote.
If it even came across your mind, I'm telling Richard to like to hide the cards.
Stop, that's so mean. If you consider this deck, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe you should consider a wall or stall type deck. You'll probably have more success with it. So enough messing on Flygon. Enough messing with my boy, because Flygon's still a sick Pokemon. We'll get into a Pokemon I can now hate on and feel okay, and that is Gardevoir EX.
Gardevoir, let me see where I put the thing. I put it in B simply because, not because I like it, not because I want it to do good, but because the people playing it are insane, and there are very few of them, but they know how to make a name for themselves.
It's getting pretty popular again. The deck is seeing some more play, like play rate wise. But like you said, they're insane players. Yeah.
I don't like that. I want them all to like. I can't wait for them to just like print an anti-Gardevoir deck, and then they just are forced to like hide away again.
Ancient Box.
Yeah, we need more Ancient Box players. Like, Guardy can't feel comfortable in my home. She can't. I'm sorry. I don't want Gardevoir players to be able to just, like, walk in and have Balloon Bass, Blast for 8 bazillion.
Honestly,
and,
Dragapult and Charizard with Dusknoir, like, I feel like both these decks do better into Guardy, and I think that's why I agree. While you were thinking about Guardy, I actually dragged it to the most mid of B tiers. I think this is a pretty mid pick. I think there's decks that are kind of countering it pretty well. I think it's still super consistent. It's super popular. But, like you said, it's insanely hard to play. There's not many people who could successfully pilot it very well. B tier.
there it is.
Yeah. Jumping into the next one. Enough about our most mid of top dogs. Guardy, we're now jumping into one of my favorite decks that I actually don't have much experience playing myself, but I love watching it run. I gotta make a video on the deck. Goldengo EX with Togekiss now.
I got it in like the mid to upper B. Energy Search Pro just propelled Goldengo into the spotlight.
Yeah. So I had this in C tier with Ceruledge. But based on your description of Ceruledge, I feel like these two kind of come as a package. If one is in B tier, the other is in B tier. So like, I'm gonna throw with Ceruledge for that reason.
Thank you. Also, like, I feel like Goldengo just has more room to play around now with more cards. They can play a lot more like energy retrieval rather than energy find cards.
That's true.
They don't really need vessels anymore. They find that one pink card. They play Irida, get a pink card, they win.
Or Arven.
Like Golden or Arven, yeah.
Irida, anything like that. Yeah, Irida for Greninja and then Energy Search Pro. Boom. Your energy for the rest of the game are golden. Now, I actually saw 2 decks now have been running it with the Curlia engine, and I'm like, that's so smart, just for like draw power and stuff. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, but Golden Goal players are figuring it out, and I'm happy for you guys. I just wish they could have made a card for me, and
Not the Qianpao hate. I actually don't even think I have Qianpao on this tier list. I'm sorry. If I had Qianpao on this tier list, you could say where it'll go. It's your deck.
It would be indeed. Like, just don't play.
Don't play Qianpao. I love Qianpao. Avery loves it more. It's not the play. There's no.
If I gave up Qianpao, there is no hope. Zero.
So now that we've ranked Goldengo and Qianpao, we can jump into Gouging Fire.
I haven't seen this thing work. I don't know where to put it, to be completely honest.
I have it under Flygon in D tier. It's just a harder, less consistent version of Miraidon and Raging Bull. I feel like it's the middle of the two. It's like the middle child between the three of those. It's like...
Yep.
Like, Miraidon's the oldest sibling, Gouging Fire exists in the middle, and Raging Bull is the youngest. Raging Bull gets all the love now because it's spoiled and new, and, like, everyone loves it. Miraidon did it first. It does it with more gambling. It's more fun. Gouging Fire can swing harder than Miraidon. It has more HP like Raging Bolt, but it's not unlimited damage like Miraidon. Like, it's the worst out of the lot of them.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I also just like immediately looking at the card, I'm just like, why? What's the point?
You get Sada, you get Magma Basin, you get access to Delphox B, Radiant Charizard, you get access to a lot of fun cards you normally don't see play anywhere else but Gouging Fire. However, kind of like I said, if you're thinking Gouging Fire, honestly, I would look into Miraidon and feed the Gambling Crave, or Raging Bull and just swing for 740 damage, and I'm going to do it again next turn. Like, I feel like those are better picks with the same vibe.
Big base. I love it.
Yeah. Getting into your next top deck, Hydreigon EX.
Listen, all right, I might be helping the copium here. I got this thing on the instant tier for like as far as come up decks. There's going to be someone that makes a 60. That 60 is going to be made. It is going to shape the game. The thing about Hydreigon is a lot of people playing it aren't that proficient with the Zard aggressiveness playstyle. You want to be, you're going to swing, you see me do it consistently. I can turn to Obsidian almost every time.
Which is insane. Like, you don't even need to. It's just like, you're looking at it and you're like, yeah, I could do it if I wanted. Not necessarily a benefit, but like, it's here. Which is insane. I didn't have it in C tier. I had this deck in A tier.
That's great.
Like, rocking A tier. Like, this might be my top deck. Like, honestly, or second. But it's honestly, I feel like any of these decks in A tier, I'm much less concerned with the order. They're just here and they're all so viable. Hydreigon, for every reason you just said, it's not a come up deck. It's here. Its spot is known. I've got it making top 8 in Perth. Like, I'd be shocked if no one knows.
I'm moving that right up now. Right up. There's a believer besides me.
No, for all the reasons you just said. And it's getting popular. I think more people, it's seeing a lot more success in online tournaments. It's seeing a lot more play. I think people are making more and more refined lists. I think there's the Disruption build, which plays more chaotic cards. And there's the, like, I just want to kill everything build that even could play Dusknoir, just like Charizard. This is like Charizard, but with more teeth. And I love it for that.
I want to tell my opponents, you knock me out now or you lose. I love that.
Yeah.
Swing for 330. Try.
And the math is so perfect. You use Crashing Headbutt for 200, and then you use Obsidian for 130, so you're successfully two-shotting Stage 2 Pokemon. Like, that's ridiculous. That is insane. So, yeah, I got this in the A tier. I think it's a good lock for A tier as well.
If your opponent loves their support EXs, that is, you got Brontom, you got these, like, you say, 130, 130, I'll play 4, 5, next turn,
and you can only use one penny a turn, so you're not picking all of them up. Like, it's crazy.
And if you want to hit I got first Crispin, that's ready.
Yeah.
I got one here, too. If you want to get rid of my steel and my psychic, I can get the back. Oh my god, I'm so so happy for her.
I can't wait to see this deck do well. I hope someone day twos, not only day twos with it at Perth. I know people will do that. I want to see this in top 16, top 8. It deserves it. Its time is now. I think it's about time this deck kind of shows the dominance, and I'm gonna regret saying that by the time the next episode comes out, because then all of a sudden everyone's only gonna play this deck, and I gotta figure out a way to beat it. But for now, I want to see this top 8. It needs its top 8.
Absolutely, and I will be riding that train like other players do.
Yeah.
I will shamelessly doing it as well. My deck is hard and easy.
For the next pick, it's back. It's better than ever. People have already forgotten about it, despite it took down Worlds. Iron Thorns.
Once again, Thorns, people love it back in their minds with trauma, and then they forget to fill it out.
Got it back in me.
I got that as well. Thorns, yeah, I got it. It's that. There's four little yellow red just chilling in it somewhere, and they're coming for you and red backpacks. So how fun is that? You play clone. Hopefully that's just my problem. But until then, Red sorry, the Paradise is going to be a force to be regulated until it rotates. It is just too strong.
I think, just like you said, like people are starting to forget about it. I'm seeing less colognes in lists. I'm seeing its matchups just kind of jump up, like percent-wise. I'm seeing people more kind of playing it, but on the low. Like it's gaining some popularity again, but like still on the very much back burner. Like for Worlds, it was a back burner deck, but one everyone kind of considered. I feel like right now this deck is like not many people are considering it, but the people who are playing it are actually seeing some solid results. And I don't think this deck will take down Perth or Toronto. I just think it'll have a respectable amount of day twos at both. I think it's a very well-positioned deck. I think it's a very, like, very straightforward, pretty easy to play. There's a ton of different ways you could kind of play it. You could play with Generator, you could play with more chaotic supporters like Zero6. I don't think there's one correct way, and I think that matters less, because what matters is you only play 4 Quad Thorns and your opponent isn't playing the game. So no matter how you choose to play it, you're still watching your opponent not play, and I think that's like the best thing for it.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Word. Jumping into the next deck, my king of the B tier, Cloth. What Toronto? Yes.
It's an absolute menace.
Yes.
Like I said last time, if your attack game has unhinged, I'm on board. I'm on board.
So I'm going to try to find it right now. I don't think I saved the tweet, but someone actually, and if you did make this tweet, please comment and let me know. I don't have it saved. So I think it was something like 61 people brought this deck to the last regional. Brought it to, what was it, Sacramento? Why am I blanking on the name? Whatever the regional that just happened literally like 3 days ago was. And 30-something of them, or 32 of them, made day 2. Like, this deck had one of the best day 2 performances. All I know was the overall conversion from day 1 to day 2 percentage was like 54 or 56%. Which is, I think that's probably got to be one of the highest that's ever happened in a deck with more than like 10 people playing it. You know?
I want more.
Yeah. With Terrapagos, this deck now gets access to Area 0. And I think for the next list of reasons, it's why this deck is better than ever. Even though Cloth does less damage because we don't have access to the Spicy Curry that burns it, we still get access to Electrode, we still get access to Brute Bonnet because you're playing Brute Bonnet to poison yourself. You now bypass Pikachu EX's ability because you're naturally putting poison on it to put poison on yourself to attack. You also get access to Terrapagos as an attacker. With Terrapagos, you get a bigger bench. So now when you play Squawk first turn, you can also play Pheasantipity or Radiant Greninja or whatever Radiant you're playing. Like, it's just, this deck is insane now. It plays Pecharon EX, Stall, no problem. Like, this deck has answers to everything.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Like Cloth.
Cloth is top of the B tier. I don't think it's an A tier. I think there's still some matchups where it's kind of rough. I think similar to Ancient Box, Stage 2 decks are still a little tricky to figure out. I think Dusknoir still kind of shuts this deck down a little bit too hard, especially Obsidian with Hydreigon. I think just the beef of Dragapult also, like, shuts it down. You know, Stage 2 decks are hard for Cloth. And I think you're looking at this tier list, three Stage 2 decks out of 4 are in A tier. that just naturally kind of puts Ancient Box and Cloth in, I think, the upper B tier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think Cloth will put in A tier eventually. There's going to be some...
Honestly, maybe next episode.
There's going to be a card printed. That is one to absolutely...
Not even a card printed. I think it's just going to... The format will naturally change where this deck is now has to be respected. And I think just the fact that the format will change slightly, that slightly is going to be Cloth doing better. I think this deck is on the up. And I think it was Rogue going into Sacramento. I think now it's B in bulk of the meta, and I think its conversion rate is insane. The matchup spread is so solid. I think, honestly, within the next regional or two, we might consider Cloth for more of an A-tier pick.
This is still the Rat climbing.
Love it. Well, excuse me. The other deck that's climbing, and we haven't seen in a long time, Lost Box with Pikachu EX.
Lost Box with Pikachu. I feel like there's just better ways to play Pikachu. You know what I mean?
I think there's one better way to play Pikachu, which we'll get into in a bit. I think Lost Box is the definition of a good B tier pick. I think this is going to be a respectable bulk of the meta. Like, if you think about it, break it down, dude. How do you set up Pikachu? Mirage Gate manual attach. That's the most average. Lost Box has been doing that since the day this deck came out. Now you printed a Stage 2 EX that can one-shot any Pokemon in the game, any Pokemon on this tier list in the game with a Defiance Band, or Kieran or something like that. Like, it could do that in the most simple of ways as far as Lost Box is concerned. And it's a Stage 2 Pokemon with an ability that prevents you from KOing it on your first turn, essentially. That, I couldn't name a more perfect Lost Box EX, honestly.
You know what? Honestly, I feel like you have a really good point there.
Yeah, and like, Lost Box can handle Kyurem and Regidrago. Like, it's still solid. You can play double Manaphy if you're that scared. One Manaphy already causes enough problems for the deck. Plus, if they're using Kyurem and you get Pikachu in play and you've got close enough to 7 where one Colress can push you over the edge, dude, like, you'll recover. You'll be okay. I think this was exactly the card Lost Box needed to make the comeback here. So I've got it in the middle. I've got it at the number 5 in B. I got it behind Cloth, Thorns, Ancient Box, and Snorlax. I got it very close behind a lot of them. Honestly, maybe even a little higher. I think it's... You still have Greninja, you still have Sableye, you still have Cram. Now you just have a perfect state, 2-prize attacker.
Yeah, I think too. I just didn't have it like anywhere like near up towards the top. I feel like it was more than that gonna be. At least.
That's fair. No, and I respect that. I think, depending on your take, and I think maybe playing Hydreigon like with Obsidian, like, that makes sense. Where like maybe your thought process of this. I don't want to. I hate to say it's like skewed, but it's like you're thinking like as a Hydreigon player, dude, you're gonna walk through this deck, and I can't blame you. You probably will. One of the matchups that probably isn't as good for Lost Box is Hydreigon. So I think honestly, and there's other matchups that aren't great too. I think Ancient Box is more consistent than Lost Box. I think Pikachu could get a little annoying, but Ancient Box could figure it out because it's only single prize attackers. So I think like Ancient Box is a better deck for that. I think Cloth might have a little more trouble going into it, but you know, it's, yeah, I got it. I don't know, low, mid, high, B. It's in B. It's somewhere.
It's in that area.
Yep. Which is fair. B is the bulk. It's somewhere in the bulk. Not bulk.
You might not. Yeah.
Next up on the list, Lugia.
Lugia, I think we'll put it the best way possible. If it's not him, it's nobody. And I have Lugia. I have Lugia at the back end of B. Like, it's there. You're gonna find people playing it. I just think that like this deck is gonna it's falling off expeditiously, and I just don't think it's worth it.
So I'm gonna try to convince you something different. Can I put it at the top of C?
The absolute, you know what, honestly, I feel like at this point, Lugia is a rogue deck.
If Rahul's not playing it to a regional, it's not good. And if you don't know who Rahul Reddy is, he's Lugia. And I don't know how else to word that. If Rahul is switching to Claw for whatever he's playing, don't play it. This guy will play Lugia no matter what, and make every top 8 known to man. Yet he's not playing it. Like, yeah, it's more rogue at this point. I think the matchup spread is actually, like, pretty trash for Lugia.
Lugia's getting the champ out treatment now. And
I don't know about that. We got a long way before that, but it's definitely not great. That's for sure.
it was starting, and now it's like becoming a little bit more rogue. And next thing you know, it's gone.
That's fair. Jumping into the next deck, I got the wall deck with Melodic and Noivern.
I got it in the bowl. It's there. I feel like a lot of these decks that just tell your opponent no are going to be there. There's a lot harder ways to get around them, and with Melodic, especially with Terra Pokemon block, there's a lot of Terra Pokemon in the format right now that absolutely just annihilate everything. So, and there's a lot of those Terra decks that don't really play anything to deal with Melodic and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of problems for decks, and with Noivern telling basics, right?
Yeah, basics.
Yeah, Noivern telling you basics now, so there goes your like Pikachu EXs and things like that. And with Melodic, just saying Terra Pokemon as a whole, the only way you're really going to be attacking with a deck against this one is like evolved non-Terra Pokemon, which there's a good amount of them. Yeah.
But you could just stick an Ogerpon in your deck. I mean, while we're talking about this, I want to the next deck on the list is Mimikyu Ogerpon. I feel like the two of these decks kind of follow the Saralege Goldengo route, where it's like if one of them is B tier, both of them are B tier. And I think for the same exact reason you were saying, like they just kind of wall out the entirety of the meta. And you could have all four of these in one deck if you try hard enough. It probably would be a lot less consistent. I think you should pick 3. Max, but yeah, you worded it perfectly. I had Melodic, Noivern, and C, but when you brought up the popularity of Terra Pokemon, I like B. I like B a lot for both of these.
Yeah, I would B.
No, I like that. Above Saralege and Goldengo or below?
Below, because Goldengo its aim is to take the prizes, not run your opponent's deck.
Well, see, that's the thing with these decks. The goal is to take prizes. It's not stall. These play energy. These are ready to attack from the minute they can. And I think that's what's nice about these decks. They're just Snorlax stall, but with pressure. Like, legitimate, not deck pressure. Legitimate, like, will KO your board because you don't know how to set up the right Pokemon to attack pressure.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah. And I think it's actually, like... I think Ogerpon Mimikyu is the better of the two because it's basic only Pokemon and it's simpler to set up and apply the pressure. You don't have to worry about evolving. But I think if you could successfully set up Melodic or Noivern when you need to, I think it's stronger once you do that. But of course, just overall, I think consistency-wise, like Mimikyu, Ogerpon will be easier just because, again, you don't evolve. It's just one less step. But yeah, no, it's fair.
I like that thought, but I feel like Ogerpon, Melodic, walls out a lot more.
Well, when I played Melodic Noivern, I put a copy of Ogerpon in the deck. Like, that's what I meant. You should play 3 of these Pokemon. I think you either play Noivern or Mimikyu. I think if you're playing Melodic, you're definitely playing Noivern, and you're definitely throwing in an Ogerpon. I think if you're playing Mimikyu Ogerpon, you could probably throw a 1-1 or like a 2-2 max line of Melodic in there. Like, I don't think there's one right way to play Wall. I think there's just 2 known archetypes for it, but any combination of the lot of them probably work fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it in B. That's fair. That's actually really respectable looking at the rest of this tier list. The next deck on the list, I got Miraidon.
Miraidon, I have a rogue. Miraidon is like the Thai masters play Miraidon. It's a gamble deck. It really is a gamble. If your generators aren't hitting, you're not hitting. And you have a really good attack at the point on turn 2.
Yeah. I had this in B, but looking at our tier list, I feel like B doesn't feel right when our A tier decks are Charizard, Hydreigon, and Dragapult, like notably hard matchups for Miraidon. And again, like you said, if your generators aren't hitting, man, like it's just, you're kind of cooked. You can't really rely on much naturally without that. Like Raiku's only going to do so much. I think you do get access to Pikachu now, and I think that's why I had it in B as well, because you could use Magneton to KO yourself, set up Pikachu or other attackers. Like, that is pretty nice, but I think overall Lost Box is a better way to do it. So, yeah. I might put this above Lugia and C, though. Like, this is now the top of C.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Next, I got the Polkias deck. Palkia's like 2 decks. I've got Palkia Dusknoir and Palkia Knocked Owl.
I got them both in the bulk meta. I just got knocked out all of Dusk.
I have them in Don't Play.
Oh.
I don't think either are worthwhile. I think they're the top of Don't Play. I just think, like, if you're playing Palkia Dusknoir, I think the better way to change the deck to use Dusknoir better is to de-sleeve your Palkias and stick in Charizards. And I think if you're playing Palkia Knocked Owl, I just don't see this hitting hard enough. Like, consistently to deal with, like, Hydreigon and Dragapult and stuff like that. And I'm thinking of those specifically because, dude, think about you playing Hydreigon and then think about, like, 3 Knocked Owls on the bench.
Yeah, that's just, like, easy pickings. I played a lot of Palkia with Knocked Owl.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that you play it with, like, Terrapago, so you search out your area zeros, you buddy for more Knocked. Like, you keep that cycle. And swinging hard was never really a problem, and the energy was more so the issue.
But I think, like, swinging hard wasn't the problem because your bench was full, but now, that was before Hydreigon was out, wasn't it? Because since then, we haven't played Palkia, and I think now that we have a phenomenal bench attacker, like, think about Obsidian, think about you're playing against Hydreigon, playing Palkia Knocked Owl. You're staring down an Obsidian, your bench is, like, 3 Knocked Owls and a Terrapagos or 2. Like...
Yeah, you just lose.
Yeah. You know, I think that's kind of what scares me. I think there's other picks similar to Palkia that are just better, so I guess, you know what, you do make good points with Palkia Knocked Out just always being strong. I'll put that one in C. But Palkia Dusknoir, I think, is still a D. I think it's a don't play deck. I think Palkia Knocked Out, like you said, it's strong. Maybe the energy is a little hard to search for. I think, you know what, if it can handle the stage 2 decks, I think it'll be a nice rogue pick, but overall, I don't think it'll be more than that.
I'll take that. Yeah. As far as, like, Dusknoir goes, I still feel like it.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good.
You can make up for that damage with just playing with Terrapagos.
Yeah. And then you get a nice basic, like, attacker if you really need, you know, if you didn't get a Palkia V-Star or something like that. Just DT, swing, tell him to cope.
Yeah.
I like it. Next up, we got Pidgeot EX. Pidgeot Control. Where did I put this deck? I've got it. I think I forgot it. I did forget it. Looking at its matchup spread before, I don't know why I didn't write it down. I do have it in B tier. I know that.
Yeah, me too.
Word. I think it's just well positioned. I think there's a lot of teeth for it. I think, again, it's a more aggressive stall. But I think because you're relying on Pidgeot, you just get what you need when you need it. And I think that's a huge plus and benefit for the deck as a whole.
Yep.
Word. I like it. Nice and simple. Jumping next, we got Raging Bolt.
Raging Bolt is another... I have it in A. I don't know where you put it. I just feel like Raging Bolt is just still like a really good, just solid, set up quick, hit big number, go boom. Your opponent is going to have a rough time dealing with it. But there's a lot more out now that can deal with Raging Bolt, and it's shenanigans, I'll put it that way. And it's in a decent spot. I still think that if, like, you're a proficient Raging Bolt player, pick it up, bring it to original, you'll do fine.
I think if the rest of our Apex are Charizard, Hydreigon, Dragapult, Raging Bolt would be the next best pick for A because it solos all of those decks. And actually, the next deck I have listed is Regidrago, which I also had in A. And Regidrago is another, like, amazing match for Raging Bolt. So that's fair. I had it in B. I had it at the top of B. But I like A now that you say that. It does enough damage to KO everything in its mother in one shot.
Thank you, Pokemon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Back to Regidrago, though. I think this deck has a lot of positive matchup spreads. I think this one kind of falls in, like, the Charizard category. I'm actually going to switch up my A tier. I got Hydreigon in the 1, Dragapult in the 2, Actually, no, I got Charizard in the 3, then Raging Bolt, Regidrago. I think Regidrago has a very 50-50 matchup spread into almost everything, and we've been known it's consistent. I think the matchup spread isn't phenomenal, but I think it's good enough to get A tier, where it's like you could fight through every matchup if you try hard enough or get lucky enough. And I think between the two of those, yeah, I'll throw it in A. Like, I'm cool with that. If not, top of B, but I can't go lower than that, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, the Regidrago is just a force to be reckoned with. When you see that your opponent starts off with Regidrago V, you know you're going to be fighting for your life.
Unless you're playing Raging Bolt.
Yep, and then you just say, "Oh, hey there, goodbye."
Yeah, 2 prize attackers only in play right now. Word.
Oh wait, I go second.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, no, I like Regidrago. It's also been dominating online tournaments. I think this has the highest win percentage in the past 2 weeks with 50 or more players. But I think just for Perth or Toronto, I think there's gonna be too many other decks. Like, I feel like right now Regidrago's public enemy #1 because it's doing too well online. So because of that, these other decks are kind of gonna feed off of it. Like, I think Hydreigon's got a pretty decent matchup. Dragapult is much more 50-50. I might even go more towards Regidrago in that sense. Charizard, I do like Charizard into Drago. I kind of always have. And Bolt, I think, is just... Bolt looks for Regidragos, and that says enough.
Bolt spends its days hunting you.
Yeah, yeah. For the next deck, and my final A-tier deck. Also, I just realized this is going to be our 6th deck in A-tier, and I kind of love that there's so many that I'm like, these are all phenomenal. It's my boy, Reginald Gigas with Pikachu EX.
Yeah, I have it in A2. I think that when I saw your video of you playing it, I was like, this is actually like legitimately the best way to play this deck.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I
and
agree.
It still is.
So I actually
don't think
changed
there's a
the
better
list
way.
a little bit, though, since I made the video.
Ooh.
Just to have fun. I was just experimenting. I was playing with Jose. I was doing some experimenting. I put in 1 fighting energy and took out my second Pikachu to put in Terrapagos. I put in the fighting energy to give me access to using Regirock, which helps in the Miraidon matchup because Miraidon's getting pretty popular again. But with Terrapagos, you actually get to utilize the bottom attack, where you say you prevent all damage from basic Pokemon done to this Pokemon in your next turn. And I think having Terrapagos, when you're looking at a meta with Ancient Box, Iron Thorns, Cloth, Snorlax Stall, Lost Box, what else we got here? Mimikyu Ogerpon. You know, like, we have so many basic only decks. I think getting access to Terrapagos to also keep up your Area 0, but force the gust out of those decks at times they're not going to want to, is insane. And then you got Pikachu to deal with your Stage 2 decks.
And then Pikachu gets hit, and it just survives.
Well, they have a very similar energy cost, and that's why I think it's amazing. The only difference is, I believe, like a water energy and a steel energy between Terrapagos and Pikachu. So yeah, no, that's a thing I've been experimenting with Reggie. Also, since I made the video, I've seen so many posts on Twitter about people bringing a Pikachu Reggie deck to locals and, like, going 6-0, going 4-0, going 7-0. Like, legitimately, not only winning the cup or challenge, but, like, undefeated. Like, all wins. Not undefeated, like, all wins is insane. And I'm not saying that's because I posted the video. Like, I'm sure those people have never seen my video, which is fine, but that just means that this deck is popping off in more ways than just, like, still like a smaller channel, you know what I mean? And honestly, that video did a lot worse than my other ones. I don't even think it broke 1,000 views, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, this is such an underrated deck that people won't even click on it, and it's still not auto winning, but like destroying so much.
And I love seeing it.
Yeah.
I need like Reggie's need to have like another show at like a regional or something. They just need one more.
Rahul Reddy used to be known for being a Reggie player, I believe. At least I think he was the one who was a Reggie player. I forgot who. There was one of the pro players that I follow a lot. Used to play Reggies, and that's what I saw when I was getting into competitive. I was following a couple players, and I think it was him who played Reggies. If it wasn't him, I'm gonna blank on who it was, but I think it's time that Reggie's is strong enough to make a comeback, and we're actually getting a buff with Reggie's in the next couple sets. Did you see the new Regigigas that's coming out?
Yeah, like your Terra Pokemon is just deleted.
Yep,
nice.
It does 330 to Terra Pokemon for 4 energy. That's literally Regigigas' ability, manual attach swing. It's insane, dude. It brings back Regigigas being an attacker in this deck, and I love that for it.
I'm kind of scared about it, so...
Oh, and Reggie Ice also gets a new card, and I think that fixes the Reggie Ice that's useless in the deck currently. You do 90 damage, but then you do 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And that's not huge, but it's something, and that's not bad. Oh, and also, speaking of water energy for Reggie Ice, I forgot to mention in Regigigas, not only do you get access to Pikachu and Terapagos if you want, you get access to Radiant Greninja, because you play Water Energy, Luminous Energy, and then any energy you want, and now you can snipe basic unevolved Pokemon before your opponent has evolved them, and I think that's just, like, Regi's is so good, dude. I don't know how to say it.
And if your opponent has trouble setting up, you can just keep sniping.
Hell yeah. Jumping into the next deck, I got Roaring Moon. Where did I throw this guy? Why did I lose it? C tier, top C tier. But I also didn't have Miraidon in my C tier.
I put Roaring Moon in there.
Yeah, C?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I think I got it under Lugia. I think it's not C tier because it's bad. C tier because it's very rogue and I think on the come up. I think, honestly, this is a pretty decent time to play Roaring Moon. If you're a Roaring Moon stan, I think this might be, like, there's a good chance you could have a decent performance. I think there's enough decks here that you've got pretty solid matchups in that you could hang with. I think there's also some matchups that are pretty awful to run into, though. And I think there's an even enough split where you just got to kind of rely on luck of the draw and hope you get the matchup spread you want to carry yourself into day 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're playing this deck. More than ever.
Yeah, I think this is like, I mentioned the 3-sibling relationship between the other basic EXs. This is like the cracked out cousin, dude. Like, this deck swings for technically infinite damage. You just knock out your opponent's Pokemon, but you put yourself at 30 HP. And in a format where Dusknoir is insanely popular, that's a very bold thing to do. So, yeah.
If you have the gall to do that, whatever you want.
Of all the meta decks, Roaring Moon is one I would consider running. Just because it just clicks. It clicks in my brain. And I think, honestly, I never really would bring it to a regional because I don't like Pokemon that just say, oh, your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out. I think that's a really corny way to not play it. I'm not trying to knock on people who do play Roaring Moon. I'm just saying, like, for me personally, I don't have as much fun when that's how I KO'd Pokemon. But as a whole, this deck just makes sense in my head. And it is one, like, for that reason, I'd have to consider because I know how to pilot it pretty well. So, jumping into the next deck, we got Sablezard.
Sablezard, now hear me out. I have it in the back end of A, but the only reason it's there is because if you can play it, you can sweep. Now, it's matchups against everything else in A are bad. I know that. It gets smoked. But I am going to put it here on the back end. It can drop easily, very easily.
I feel like that's my problem with it being A tier. If you could get smoked by many other decks, especially good players playing other good decks, I feel like that by default takes it out of A and puts it at the top of B.
Top of B is.
You know, I actually had this deck in C tier, but I agree with you. If you're playing this deck, you're playing it for a good reason, and I have to respect that. And my thing got too wide. Okay, whatever. I'll just do this. My B tier got too big. It's like bunched over. Anyways, the matchups, I think there's too many hard matchups for this deck. Most notably, even Iron Thorns will be pretty difficult. Shutting off Radiant Charizard is pretty hard. But Ancient Box is going to be scary. Cloth's going to be scary. It actually has a really good Charizard matchup. I think this deck has a lot of positives going into Charizard. I worry about Hydreigon. Even Regigigas. Like, there's a lot of decks I do worry about with Sablezard, and that's someone who loves playing Sablezard. This is a deck, not only would I consider it, I could see myself playing this to a regional at some point in my life. And I don't know if this is the tournament I would bring it to, but I would definitely spend some time testing it and looking into it. And I think that's respectable enough to get it in the B tier.
Mm-hmm.
Word. I can rock with that. We got one deck left, and it is Terapagos Dusknoir.
I gotta put Terapagos. Like, I just don't see an actual, like, good, like, reason to play based, like, Like, listen, just play Palkia with Dusknoir. You do more damage, you hit harder, you get more advantage from the Dusknoir. Terapagos max is swinging for what? That's like two something? Like, awesome. If your stadium gets bumped, guess what? Your damage is like in half. Oh, your Dusknoir, you're giving them a prize. Like, it's not. There just isn't enough. It's plain and simple. There isn't enough. A Palkia will do double the damage that you're doing for the same amount of work, if not less work.
Yeah. And
your Dusknoir will be able to pick up KOs a lot easier if you're playing Palkia Dusknoir. I like the idea. I like Terapagos. I think it's a good card, but in our sort of format now, like release Terrapagos like at the end of the Sun and Moon block. It's an absolute, it is a dominant card. Release it now with the decks that we have. By itself, it just doesn't stand out. People liked it because you could toss it in Palkia and take advantage of Area Zero so much easier. Like that was almost the entire showing of it, because you could play with Area Zero. If those two cards are cool, when you play them by themselves, there's just not enough to justify it. If you want to bring it to a locals and, get some good laughs, have some fun times, not swinging for 8 billion damage, because I get it. There's some people that don't like that. There's some people that like a more casual, like, I want to, keep this game going a little longer, but you have like 200 and something. Like, you're going to get, you get one shot. If Terrapagos had more bulk to it, then like I could understand wanting to run it. If it had more damage, I can understand it. But right now, it is falling low on both on stats. It just isn't there by itself. You want to run it with a partner, and I don't think Dusknoir is the perfect partner. I don't think there really is a partner aside from Palkia that makes it worth running.
I don't think there's a better explanation on why it should be in D tier. I think that was perfect. I think, for every reason you just said, it's a D tier deck. Bring it to a local, have some fun. It's just, it doesn't have the power or bulk, like HP wise bulk, to be anywhere else. I think for a regional, for Perth and Toronto, it's just not a good pick. I wouldn't recommend playing it. You want Dusknoir, play Charizard. You want to use a basic and kind of swing for big damage, play Raging Bolt.
And both of those decks are in the A tier.
Yeah. Exactly. Win. Yeah. I agree. I think that was perfect. So that is going to wrap it up, though, for our tier list. I hope you guys agreed with it or liked it or helped shed some light on maybe what you should play, what you should look out for. I'm sure other tier lists are going to look grossly different from ours. I feel like just as a whole, we try to take into account more rogue decks than other like channels and creators, and I'm not trying to say that's a knock on them. I just feel like we spend more time playing rogue decks, so we kind of feel their power more, whether that be for good or worse. Like, in the case of Reggie's, it's amazing. Like, we really know how that deck has power. But in the case of like Flygon, because I know there's some Flygon believers, like, yeah, I'm telling you, as somebody who recorded and posted a video on it, like, there's just more efficient ways to wall your opponent out than Flygon. So I know our tier lists are definitely more chaotic, definitely a bit crazier. I still hope you enjoyed it, and maybe some of these insane predictions come true. I would love to see that. I mean, the format is definitely more diverse. It's definitely more chaotic, and I think that's good. I think we're getting to a spot in the game, like with the popularity and power of Cloth, I think we can now say, like, the format's getting healthier, like a lot healthier. I think this is the change people have been itching to see. Right now, look at this format, dude. Look at this tier list. There are so many single prize Pokemon in the A and B tier, whereas like last year at this time, that was totally not the case. And I would love it for the day where A tier only consists of single prize Pokemon. I think that's the point where like we flipped the format on its head, and we've really shown that like there's better cards to play than the big super fancy expensive printed cards that Pokemon like wants us to play. And as a rogue player, that's something I enjoy thinking about. And honestly, like, I like where we're sitting. I think this is a fun spot to play the game, learn the game, pick up the game. If you're just listening to this tier list on what deck to play and you're not going to regional, look at the single prize options. They're not as big and shiny, but they're fun, and they're actually doing really well right now.
Pokemon, if there's anyone that is even related to the company listening, get us a gold Cloth card, please.
Yo, facts.
I want an SIR Cloth card that just blows the handles off of everything. Yeah. Like, have you seen the recent like leaks of like the cool ones?
Oh my gosh, they're insane, dude.
I need a Cloth in like that Iron Valiant style.
Cloth
yes,
deserves it. Yeah, I agree. So because it is the podcast, that is it for our tier list. But as podcast goes, we do have one more part that is in the podcast, and that is Who's That Pokemon? Avery, do you want to explain the rules while I pull up the clip?
All right, so essentially, Who's That Pokemon? The victim gets sent a small portion of a card, and they have to ask some questions to try and figure out what that card is. They have to be specific, though. Iron Valiant or Iron Valiant EX are two different cards. They're two different answers, and you could be wrong with that.
But I feel like when we've been playing, if you just get the Pokemon, it's like, it's good enough. Like, we've been doing that, and it's been pretty fun doing that, so I'm not stressing it. If you guess the Pokemon in this card, I don't really care. But what you do need to do is guess only, or use your questions have to be about Pokemon cards. You can't be like, oh, what gen is this Pokemon from? Well, it's yes or no, so you can't be like, is it Gen 5 or later? But you can be like, is it Scarlet Violet era or later? Like, that's an appropriate question. So I think just having that as the card game related stuff is good enough.
Alright, lay it on me.
I have the image up on the screen. I sent the clip of the image in the Battle VIP's chat in Discord. So, you can see it. It is live. 7 questions.
That's a fish, and I know it. I think that's a fish. I think it's a fish.
Use your questions however you want. They gotta be yes/no questions related to the card game. You got 7 questions, 3 guesses. I believe in you.
Is this Pokemon a fish? I don't know if that's an appropriate question.
Is it a card related question? I don't know how to, like, is this breaking all the rules? I can break all. You know what? Save that for the end. If you get to question 6 and you're still unbelievably stuck, I'll give you a yes or no on that one.
I'm gonna guess.
Like, card-related questions for people wondering, too. Does this Pokemon have an ability? Does it have 2 different attacks? Is it a sport Pokemon, attacking Pokemon? Is what set, is it from this set? Stuff like that is, like, appropriate card questions.
Does this Pokemon sit on your bench?
Oh, boy. Hold up. Let me go back and figure that out. I don't believe so. I think you would use this as an attacker, but I also might be lying to you. Let's see. You should be right around. I'm gonna go with yes.
Okay.
Or no. Excuse me. No, it doesn't sit on your bench. You use it to attack.
Is this Pokemon a Scarlet and Violet Pokemon? Did it come out like this generation?
Yeah, it's Scarlet Violet era.
Okay.
So it is an attacker, Scarlet Violet era.
Does it have an ability?
No.
How many attacks does this Pokemon have?
2. Oh, that's not a yes or no question. You cheesed it.
All right, this Pokemon.
I don't really care. This is a card, let me tell you.
Is this an SIR?
No.
Oh, so it's okay.
2 more questions. I will give you the answer to your first original question. It is not a fish. I'll give that as my hint. I don't know. We never really made anything about hints. You still got 2 questions. This is a hard one, low key. I just saw the card and I'm like, I need to use this because I love it. Yeah. So I want you to get it. I want you to get the Pokemon so bad. Remember, for all the viewers watching, part of the Pokemon is in this image. Maybe I was a little too devious with it. But I feel like if you knew this card, this is all you needed.
I just...
But maybe I spent too much time looking at Pokemon cards is my problem. Like, I know too many random cards, and I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. If I saw
Pokemon...
this... What?
Is it featured in any of the decks on our tier list?
No! God, no!
Okay.
No, this card is trash, dude. Like, for playing the game, this card might be one of the worst. For the art of it and just the vibe of like how fitting is the art of this card to the Pokemon's personality? It's like 40 out of 10. Like, this card is amazing in every way possible, except when you get to the text, it like falls apart. That actually says so much about the Pokemon.
It says nothing to me.
You definitely haven't seen the card then, because I feel like if you saw the card, like this is a lock. Or maybe I just have an odd obsession with this Pokemon. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's why. I don't think you would know that, though. I don't really talk about it much.
All right, I'm gonna say as one of my guesses, is that Quackable?
No, that's a good guess, though.
Because I haven't seen any ducks at all ever since they dropped.
But that was my starter in Scarlet Violet.
I'm trying real hard to think, and
Oh,
I
you're
just...
good, you're good. You got 2 guesses. I believe in you. This doesn't auto sum, does it? Perfect. Oh, wait. Upload. I've got the picture ready for whenever you are good to be sent in the chat. 2 guesses. Do what you must.
I want to guess it's a water type.
It is.
Like,
it is a water
okay.
type. I'll just tell you that. You definitely haven't seen this card, so now I feel a little bad. It's a water type. I believe you can do it. Chat, if any of you in the comments have guessed this card, I will personally give you a super crisp high five if we happen to run into each other in your life. That's the best I could offer. But if you've seen this card, maybe you're just weird like me and you've either A, spent a lot of time looking at cards, or B, really like this Pokemon for like very obvious reasons. I'll give you another hint. The Pokemon is dumb.
That doesn't help at all.
Here, wait. You know what? I can pull up. Oh, it's gonna. Oh, perfect. It went to the top of my screen, so now it's. Oh, wait. It went in the other part of the screen. Well, the viewers saw it for a second. I'm not removing it. Oh, I was gonna say, does its attack name give you any hints? Its attack names don't. Its rollout and drenched headbutt are the attack names.
that doesn't do anything.
Do you want to see it?
You know what? I accept defeat. I gotta accept defeat. I just...
Here, I'm putting it on screen so that people can see it. I am hitting send in the chat right now. It is Quagsire.
You know, the worst part is one of my homies loves this Pokemon.
Dude, look at this Pokemon. I'm obsessed with it. It's adorable. And, like, the top of its head, what other Pokemon would have water just falling on its head and just be bro chilling? Like Quagsire, that's it. That's the only acceptable one. And I love this card because it embodies Quagsire.
You know what? I can't blame you. This card art is awesome. If you would have done a snippet of the face, I would have probably guessed Ditto and lost.
Yeah, so my original snippet was actually a picture of the right side of its face on the card, or I guess technically the left side of its face, but our right, where it was the eye and the smile, but it was just all blue, and that was it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if I would get this, but I'm like, you know, if you've seen this card, you definitely know it's Quagsire. But it is a very obscure card. It came from the Scarlet Violet promo set. It was the first set ever printed for Scarlet Violet.
Yeah, hell no, I didn't see this.
I was hoping one of your questions would be, is it a promo? Because I knew you would never get it if that was the question. Because this card does have the promo stamp on the bottom.
Yeah, I got absolutely nothing.
Yeah. No, fire card. Well, good guessing. You did well. I feel like I've been stumping too much. Maybe I need to take it back and remember I look at Pokemon cards too much in my free time.
you guys get mine instantly, and I'm sitting here like here for like
load executive. What was last time's? Oh my god.
I think it was the Executor.
No, it definitely wasn't. Oh my god, what was last time's? But I did get it instantly, and I was like...
It was Roserade.
Roserade, that's right. Yeah.
I was like, there's no way that he gets Roserade, like, instantly, right? Like, there's just no way that, like, this random uncommon card just gets picked.
It's a Pokemon in the front of my mind. Yeah, no, we've definitely been doing it where you guess the Pokemon and not the card. But that's fine. I feel like we've been having enough fun where it's like, whatever. It's hard enough still, that's for sure.
There's a lot.
Yeah, no, awesome playing. Thanks for talking about the tier list. If you've stuck around this long, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you haven't seen already, use my TCG player link in the description down below. If you need any cards, deck accessories, anything like that, TCG player has been rotating on the images the entire time, but that's why it's there. I do have an affiliate link. Give it a shout. Support the channel. Thank you to everyone who's just watching so long. Avery, if you're all good.
I'm all good.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope to see you in the next episode. And if you're playing in Toronto or Perth Regional, I hope this tier list helped. And best of luck. Let me know how you do. With that being said, stay epic. Peace.
Peace.